We decided to launch this initiative, which we're calling the Inner Dimensions of Climate Change, to help young people reconnect with the natural world. We want to help young people look at things from a different perspective, not just to hear the statistics. We want them to feel it as part of themselves, so that when we hear of the rivers being polluted or species going extinct, they take it into themselves, into their heart, and are able to respond from deep inside.
This theme of inner dimensions meant to me that there are things that are not seen, that are not mostly talked of, that are not even thought of, mostly by our leaders or even by our people. So that these silent things needed to be brought to the limelight, yet because why? They play an important role, and probably they are the missing link.
As I listened earlier this morning about indigenous culture practices, if you know them and you have them, embrace them, hold tight to them, share them, because at least you know who you are.
Culture does not only benefit the indigenous people, it keeps these communities in order, in harmony, united. It is very easy to work with a community that still have strong cultural bonds. In the past, the way we are seated here, they could make a fire in the middle, they bring all their children and they sit around it, and then the elders could start passing on this information. That system, those practices have also disappeared in many communities.
The nature of the biodiversity you might see in one region varies from what you see in another region. And even the kind of biodiversity we had some 10 or 20 years back is different from what we are seeing now. Because the lands are being patched day in, day out. They are being modified as and when people deem it fit. But nature in its own is very balanced, and it has a way of balancing itself. And we think we can modify it.
In our modern society, we've commodified nature, rivers, forests, and we've separated ourselves. We see them more as monetary objects. So when we talk about the inner dimensions of climate change, we're talking about reconnecting in our spirit with the rivers and with the oceans and with the forests, so that we see them as living entities that we need to respect and appreciate, that we nurture and that nurtures us.
Mother Earth is definitely grieving. And in grieving, it reacts in a way, or retaliates in a way to show its grievedness. The flooding that we see today in places where they never used to be, the droughts that are long today than they used to be. Our forefathers would tell us, my parents would tell us exactly on the date, in a year, in a month, when the rain will come, and believe me, it will come. Everybody would prepare their seed, their gardens, to go and sow. And the next day, everybody will be out in the garden sowing. There are things that I have seen change in my presence, in my village. I know the forests where we used to go collect dry branches, the rivers that we used to go to collect water, the sharing of communal things that were there, the harmony that existed in the community that are no longer existing today. And that explains partly that climate change does not appear or happen independently, exclusive of how humanity is behaving different from the yesterday's humanity.
Today, we actually have enough food to feed everybody on the planet. But 795 million people continue to suffer from chronic undernourishment, in other words, hunger, because they lack the access. They either cannot buy food or they do not have enough land and resources to grow their own food.
And I went out into the community, and there were a couple of women who couldn't afford the fertilizers and the hybrid seed, even at the cost of $10. So I said, okay, fine. Why don't we start working with this group? You need help anyway. So why don't we come in and teach you about natural agriculture? So as we started to mobilize these women, we started to realize that we're not there to actually teach them about natural agriculture. We're there to reaffirm indigenous agricultural practices that existed before fertilizer came in during colonial times. Every woman had a story. Oh my gosh, my grandmother used to grow maize without having to put fertilizer. Oh my gosh, the corn that comes out of it is much sweeter, it's much tastier. Oh my gosh, you know, my field this last year during drought season has survived, and my family and I, even if we've only harvested 5 bags, have corn as compared to those ones who are growing fertilizer. When we moved through the fields, and that was a drought year, that was about 2005, we realized that there were naturally grown fields that had survived, they had stayed green. Even if they were scarce, they existed. While the ones that had been grown with fertilizer, a large number of them had dried. But what it just proved was that natural agriculture can actually work.
If you want to pass a culture on in Ghana, then you need to stay with your family and have your parents around, have your parents' around, because your parents don't even know much, and it will be your grandparents who might have some small information to pass on to their kids. And when children hold on to something, it lasts for long. We have so many herbs in Ghana, actually, and they serve so many purposes, but we don't know their value until sometimes you have one old person telling you, oh, that thing is for retentive memory. Oh, we are going to protect it. Fine. We do all these things, then we see the value of products, then we protect them. But in a sense where we don't see their value, and we have no one to tell us about the value of the things around us.
We are trying to protect the environment. We are trying to plant some species that are endangered. Actually, we are inviting people from different districts. They come at the center. We start teaching them what we have already gathered, and we also encourage them to share knowledge. We encourage these members, after learning, that each of them must have a small garden in his home or her home. This garden for primary, that immediate health service to the family and to the community. And it has even helped greatly these people that it is a source of income to them, as much as we are preserving some of these species, particularly the species that are threatened. And this is how now we are trying to preserve some of this medicine.
If you remove a plant, maybe if you remove a tree, replace it with 2 trees. That's what we call generosity. Once we understand that everything is interrelated, interdependent, and interconnected, we are not going to dominate. So we need to be contented. Contented are 3 aspects. Contented with what's available, contented with what's suitable, contented with what within our means.
The free mind of the human being sees the whole, sees in continuities, sees parts as aspects of the whole, not as separate pieces to be joined. It looks at something from inside out.
You can change your stories. You can change your own reality. That you can change how you look at things that happens. Yes, you know, the reality of the situations that we're going through are true, but they're only narratives. If you change this, You have a lot of choices.
A man travels from Maine and he comes all the way to my office and he said, the trees told me to come. I said, the trees? He said, the trees. I said, why? He said, because the trees want to tell you to keep on doing what you're doing.
We only understand peace on earth because that's the domination factor, to be on something, to be dominant on top of. But when you're with something in a relationship, you begin to understand that everything, rocks, stones, ants, birds, fish, are also nations that support you, the human species, as a nation.
I'm an environmental scientist, I'm an ecologist, and I see the world in a very scientific way. But being here has made me see the world in a different space. I'm evoked and begin to think about other branches of environmental science beyond just science for the sake of practice, beyond science for the sake of getting results. But I'm beginning to see that we need to look at science in a more ethical sort of manner and start looking at ethical ecology, where we actually have to know what we value and know that whatever we value has a connection with us.
Let us have a connection with Mother Earth and all these problems will be solved. Let us not cry. Let us not make them weep.
Our goal is to build a global network of young people working in the environmental field who also understand the deep inner qualities of how we need to reconnect with nature and understand the ethical and moral dimensions of the climate and ecological crisis. These young people are not interested in religion per se, they're interested in spirituality. They're interested in that which is universal. Whether you were indigenous or Christian or Muslim or Buddhist, it didn't matter. They were not interested in what separated them. They were interested in what united them, and they very much came together in a shared spirituality. And the shared spirituality was nature.